Amen. Amen. Good to see everybody. Hope you've enjoyed the conference. Have you liked it so far? Why don't we just say a big thank you to the team that have pulled this together, eh? Amazing. Just been so inspired by everything I've heard and the conversations that I've had. I just find this such a blessed place, a place where I can be amongst friends, share honestly some of the struggles that we encounter together, and man, it's just such a precious, precious resource, and I'm grateful for all of you. God has been kind to me through this conference, kind to me through ministry. I've gained some wonderful friends. When I joined Eden, I gained some incredible people that I journeyed with through ministry together as a team, but also some fantastic friends from my community. Probably one of my besties was a neighbor who we've journeyed the roller coaster of life together through some incredible moments of God-only miracles and some really deep and very dark times of hard stuff. My mate is a long-term heroin addict, an alcoholic who has struggled. The nature of his addictions have led to chaos when I wasn't expecting it sometimes, and all sorts of breakdown that has been really very difficult to track at times. But I suppose over the years of journeying with this guy, I've seen this slow and steady plod towards change and towards Jesus, and his life looks nothing like it was when I first met him. I spoke about this fella a few years ago actually at Proximity, because just in the week running up to Proximity, it had all gone a bit pear-shaped. His pastor had caught up with him. He'd done something really silly to try and raise money. He'd smuggled drugs into prison, which is never advisable. And he'd got as far as the guard dog at the front gate. And then a miracle happened. Well, I thought it was a miracle, in that there was suddenly something that meant that the whole prison had to be locked down with my mate in it when he was trying to get out. But the police were trying to get in to arrest him. You still have to be arrested inside a prison, right? And so the police waited outside, but they couldn't open the doors because something had happened. And so when they finally went open the doors, the police had sort of given up. And so he walked away. But he had this outstanding charge that we knew at some point would come to roost. And then in the run-up to Proximity one year, he was arrested and then placed in jail. And I remember sharing, probably slightly overly emotional and oversharing at Proximity one time, my fears and my anxiety about what would happen to this fella. You know, would I lose access to him? Would our relationship fade? Would his faith begin to decline? Would he sort of fall out of love with Jesus? Would I ever see him again? He was not a well man. And I thought, you know what, if he's got 7-year sentence, if he's well behaved, out in 3.5, but is he even going to be alive in 3.5 years? I wasn't sure. And then someone at the Proximity conference came to me at the end and they began to prophesy. And they prophesied that actually prison would be the place of healing for my friend. And I think I nodded and smiled and said, thank you. And in my heart, I was like, how lovely. As if. And I wish I had the faith to believe that was gonna happen, but I just thought, yeah, that's fine. All you Crizzos, a bit sort of fired up and a bit excitable after 2 days of worship and prayer and listening to great things. You wanna speak something? And I was like, whatever. You can keep that. But prison was the place of healing. And the prophetic word was true. 3.5 years later, he came from prison clear of drugs and alcohol, and he'd survived COVID. He'd been very, very sick, but because of the care of the prison, he'd survived COVID, which wasn't the same for his partner. Sadly, I had to bury his partner while he was inside. And And so on leaving prison, he then sort of fell into this support system. He was put in a dry house with this wraparound support. He got loads of help. And suddenly he's looking at healthy rhythms. Every single day he seemed to be in like a Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And they were teaching him how to cook. And he'd send me like all his certificates on WhatsApp messages and pictures of food that he'd made. Look at bolognese. And that was amazing. And then a text message out of the blue, which said, Sam, I've 20 minutes to leave the property. Can you call me, please? But I picked up the text message 40 minutes after he'd sent it. And then the worry begins. What's going to have happened in the time that I failed to answer the text message? What has happened? I've got to be out of here in 20 minutes and it's 40 minutes and I'm in a meeting and my meeting is followed by another meeting, which will be followed by another meeting. What can I do to help? I am stuffed here. And I begin to think, oh no, where is this going to go? And so I sort of excuse myself from a meeting. And I ring up my mate and I say, what's gone on? And then I learn the kind of news that you don't want to hear. He's failed a urine test in the dry house. They found alcohol in his system. The rules are the rules. He's out. There's no going back. He's done for. And I'm locked in work. Sam, can you come and get me? I'm like, I wish I could. I don't even think I was in Manchester. I would have been somewhere else. And I'm thinking, I can't just drop everything and go get you. But everything inside of me wants to rescue this guy, just get there and scoop him up and stick him in the back of my car. And he says, don't worry, mate. Don't worry. I've got a plan. And so we stay in touch over the next few days. Whenever I call, he says he's doing okay. And I say, sure, mate, are you sure? And he says, I'm doing okay, but I need somewhere that I can call home. And finding a home is not going to be straightforward. And when I meet up, I learn more and I'm devastated. See, he's been collected from the dry house by an old friend. And that within hours, his heroin addiction has rekindled. He's already smoked crack and he's drinking non-stop. Within 24 hours, he's moved from a dry house with a strong support network, a plan for independent living, a cooking course under his belt, benefits working well, money in the bank for the first time in 40 years, and regular visits to the doctor. Now I find him a homeless addict with chronic COPD, living in the drug den of a man who's taken his bank card and has already removed £1,000 from his bank for a couple of days' rent. And all the progress seems lost. Like in the moment, all the years of steady, slow progress has gone. And I'm convinced that if I can't get him out of there, he will be dead within a week. I've seen it before. People who leave prison and then fall back into addiction and they're gone real soon. And so I say, will you come with me and I'll get you to safety? Can I come pick you up? And he says, yes. And so I pull up in the car and I drive him away and he says, what do I do with all my stuff? And I'm like, forget the old stuff. We'll start again. He's like, I need my medication. It's back in the house. And I'm like, well, do we have to go in the house? Do I have to go back to the drug den because he's staying in the car? He's wheelchair bound. He's not well enough even to walk to the front door. He's sending me in to get his stuff. He said, just pack my stuff and bring my medication. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't. I'm not doing that. And so, yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. And so we park up back outside the house and he gives me the keys and I go into this drug den and I'm thinking, oh, please let there be nobody in. And I sort of tiptoe quietly, like not even wanting to like put a light switch on. And I'm like, oh, what did he say? And I go back to the car and I said, well, I don't even know which room it is. Like, give me some directions. And then I sneak back in and he's like, to the left. And I try to like put him some clothes in a hold all and I find some medication. I go out and he's like, that's not my meds. And I have to... I go back in. I'm like, what did I just touch? I'm thinking of fingerprints everywhere. And I'm like, So I find out medication. It's like one of those masks, oxygen tanks and stuff. And I take it back to the car. We're already on 2 or 3 visits to this house. And we drive away to safety. And then he says, you got to go and drop the keys off. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll just go to the front door and I'll post it quietly through the letterbox. And then I make it in the nerves and in the anxiety, post the wrong keys through the door. And I'm like, oh no. And oh no, I've actually posted the keys to his mum's house in this letterbox. I'm like, oh no. That means I am gonna actually have to knock on the door and ask for the keys back, right? And so I'm like, I leave it 24 hours to sort of build up courage. And I have to go back and I'm absolutely petrified as I knock on this door. And all I could think is my mate says, he says to me, if you take your glasses off, you look like a psycho. It says you look like a Russian. So I thought I'll just have to go with that. So took my glasses off. I thought as well, if I'm going to get hit, I don't really want my glasses broke. And so I had to go knock on this door. But I'm in a mess. I'm in an absolute pickle. And all the time I'm looking for God in this situation. Lord, where are you? So far it feels like you've somewhat abandoned me. At least you'd help me put the right keys through the right door. Where are you, God? And you know what? I found such solace in this beautiful psalm, Psalm 34. It is a gem of a psalm. Dig it out when it feels like it's all going up the Swanee, when it's all gone wrong. Why do I love it? Because Psalms 34, before you get into the text, gives us this little bit of context. It gives us an insight into when it was written, why it was written, and what it was written for. Let me read you what it says. It says, a psalm of David. It's a Davidic psalm. When he pretended to be insane before Abimelech, who drove him away and he left. What on earth is going on? How did this one make it in the Bible? Written by a guy who's completely off his head. His life is totally in a mess. A psalm written by a guy whose life is totally out of control and falling apart. What is going on? Here's the story. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 21. Let me read it to you. That day David fled from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath. But the servants of Achish said, isn't this David, the king of the land? Isn't he the one they sing about in their dances? Saul has slain thousands, David his tens of thousands. Then David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of King Achish, king of Gath. So he pretended to be insane in their presence. And when he was in their hands, he acted like a madman, marking the doors of the gates and letting saliva run down his beard. I should have done that at the guy's door. Hello? Have the keys back. Achish said to his servants, look at the man. He is insane. Why would you bring him to me? Am I short of madmen? This is in the Bible. That you have to bring this fellow here to carry on like this in front of me? Must this man come into my house? Just give me the keys. David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him. And he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. It's there in the cave of Adullam. that David writes one of the most profound and beautiful psalms that you will read. He's in deep fear, far from safety, and look who he's surrounded by. Men that are considered in distress, in debt, or completely discontented. Like, they aren't the people you want to be with when it's all going pear-shaped. And I just wonder how David felt. Have you ever felt like David? Like, everywhere around me, there's just everybody's discontented and miserable. But David worships. I'd be worried to death. I'd be in the back of the cave, rocking backwards and forwards. I'm fleeing from this person and this person. Death is close by. And all that you've given me, God, is a whole bunch of blokes who hate life. But yet David begins to sing. David begins to worship. I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. And it's beautiful. I love it so much. In the mess of life, his response is worship. Despite his situation, he says, I will bless the Lord. At all times and in all seasons and in every circumstance, his praise will ever be on my lips. And I'm like, oh God, do this in me. I am prone to draw myself inward and be utterly discontented and distressed. But Lord, let worship be on my lips. He continues, verse 3, glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I love this. He calls other people into the place of worship. In distress and nothing's going right. He's able to begin to draw people in and away from the place of distress and discontentment into the place of worship. He calls them and he says, come and magnify the Lord with me. Come, instead of magnifying your problems, instead of magnifying your worries and your anxieties and your fears, instead of drawing attention to those things, let's magnify the Lord together. And look who's listening, 400 disaffected, discontented men hiding away in a cave. And he calls the disillusioned and he calls the disaffected and he says, come to the place of praise. Join me in the place of praise and let's praise and worship and glorify our God together. How does he do it? How does he do it? Like, what can we learn from David? Well, he begins to draw attention to the character of God. It's like we could easily get consumed with our worries and our thoughts and our feelings about the circumstances that surround us. But let me just draw attention to the nature and the character of our God. Verse 4, if you seek the Lord, he can be found. He delivers us from fear. Verse 5, those who look to him will not be ashamed. Verse 6, he hears the voice of the poor and he saves them. Verse 7, there is angelic protection for us. Verse 8, he's good. He's so good you can taste him. There's safety and refuge in him. Verse 9, fear him and you'll lack nothing. Verse 10, seek the Lord and you'll lack nothing. Verse 15, God sees, God hears. The righteous as they call. Do you see what he does? He goes, we could all begin to worry about the things that are surrounding us, but let me just draw your attention to the greatness of God. This is what we do. In our communities where we're easily drawn into fear and anxiety about the circumstances around us, it's our job to be in the cave of Adullam, surrounded by those who are distressed and in debt and discontented, and draw attention to the beauty of our God and the wonder of his character and his faithfulness. That means he will be with us. And there's the crowning glory. We move to verse 16, one of the most precious Bible verses in Scripture. Verse 16, the Lord is close The Lord is close to who? The brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The Lord is near. The Lord is near. God is close at hand. No, David, what's close at hand is enemies. Step out of the camp, step out of the cave, and you are done for. If you return to Gath, there's death. If you return under Saul, you're dead. Depression is near. Distress surrounds you. 400 worried, whinging, whiners. But David begins to sing, and he sings, God is near. God is here. What an incredible God we serve. God comes near to the broken. Man, if I was God, I'd be just near to the faithful and the fit and the finest. But God, our God, comes near to the broken. God is proximate. He does not have an issue with proximity. We complain about government and the decision makers and the policy makers of our nation that are distant from the brokenhearted, have no understanding of the poor and those with great need. But our God is near. We criticize the church and we say we've forsaken the poor in our nation, but our God has not. He is not distant. He is close. He dwells with, stands with. And this is the Hebrew word called shubah. Shubah. I wish I was able to say it properly. It means those crushed into pieces. Broken biscuits. Completely crushed, torn apart and afflicted. This is our God who comes near to the broken, the God of the mess, our God in the mess. In a cave of fear, surrounded by men who are in distress or in debt or discontented, David is able to draw attention, and I think he's almost like, take a look about you guys. In the darkness, he's like, can you see him? He's near. He's here. And God's nearness is so purposeful. It's transformational. His presence has such significance and purpose. He's there because he can see. He's there so he can hear. He sees and he saves. He hears and he heals. You could say, but yes, God, we know, is omnipresent, and therefore he's everywhere. And therefore, of course, he's near. He's near to everyone, whether you're broken or not. So why does he mention it? Well, it's because David realizes when you recognize the presence of God, you begin to see what he's trying to achieve there. When you know he's there, you know he's there to do something. He's almost like, in your mess, take a look because God is going to act. He's near because he intends to bring healing and salvation. His nearness can be felt. And I love the fact that God and his nearness can be known and understood and felt by the most broken in society. His presence is a game changer. I don't know about you, but I often ask, where are you, God? You know, we all are facing circumstances in our neighborhood where we're saying, Lord, I need to work out where you are. In the mess of the mire of life, it can sometimes feel like God is distant. But I just want to remind you of the truth today. God is near. God's proximity can be known. It's not a statement we say about God. It's something that can be experienced and felt. And in his tenderness, he reveals again his character. Why did they know that God was near? Because they worshiped a God who is peace. They worshiped a God who is love and mercy and grace and kindness and joy. And I reckon amidst the darkness and misery of the cave, they began to experience something of God. I think as they began to sing, a joy began to bubble up within them. I think as they began to sing, mercy reigned. I think grace abounded. I think kindness descended. And I think love began to emerge. And I think in there, they're beginning to put on strength. This is a mess. But we've got God. Like the 300, you've seen the 300 film, hoo-ha. I imagine the noise in the cave as they began to worship and sing about the God who had not forsaken them, a God that was with them in the darkness and the mess of this life. But we've got God. And God who is present, God who is near, changes everything. Lord, I pray, open our eyes to this truth. Lord, open our ears to this truth that we may experience you. And Lord, may those that we minister to know the truth of this. I know some truly broken people that I wish that they knew the nearness of God. And so like David, I want to start to sing. Come magnify the character of God with me. Join me in this place. Come close to me because God is here. Where your eyes are prone to be drawn to worry and anxiety, depression and darkness, come stand in the place of praise. Let's begin to sing truths of who God is. God is near. And he wants to be known. He doesn't want us to just have the sentiment, oh yeah, I believe in a God who's near. He wants you to know it today. This is his heart, his willingness to draw near to the brokenhearted. It's so much is the heart of God that he would choose to leave heaven. You heard Rachel talk about it earlier. God with us, Emmanuel, the incarnate one who takes on flesh and becomes like the broken. This is how passionate God is to presence himself alongside those who are hurting, in that he would leave heaven to dwell and to draw close to the crushed in spirit. He's not only the one who touched the untouchable. Not only was he the one who came near to hear and to heal, to see and to save, but he came so close to the distressed and the depressed, the in debt and the discontented, that he even went as far as to say, this is me. Jesus comes so close to the broken that there is no separation between him and the broken. And you hear in Matthew 25, Jesus say, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. This is the God who comes so close to the broken that he himself would put his own humanity, his own physical form at risk. He made himself breakable. He made himself crushable. The God who longs to come so close to the brokenhearted would allow himself to be broken. Isaiah 53 says, surely he took up our pain and he bore our suffering. Yet we consider him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions and he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We are all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord laid on him the iniquity of us all.